Premium gives you complete control over your music.
Hey guys, it's me again. I hope you're all well. Welcome back to my channel. Many of you might already know this, but if you don't, that's completely fine. I'll be delving into all of the details later. I've been meaning to make this video for quite a while now, but I didn't want to proceed with the video until I had all of the facts. I normally don't make videos like this on my channel, but I thought it was really important that I made this one because Sushant Singh Rajput was not only somebody that was very important to myself and my family, but the entire of Bollywood. Everyone who is a fan of Bollywood is feeling this pain right now. Sushant Singh's death is something that is very strange and very suspicious because there's too much foul play involved. So he actually started off his career in TV shows. So you know how we have EastEnders, Hollyoaks, Waterloo Road. India has the equivalent, and he started off doing little roles in those shows. And I remember watching with my grandma this show called Pavitra Rishta many years ago. I believe I might have been 9 or 10 years old when, you know, we watched this, and that was when I first saw him. And I'm now almost 19 years old, so you can imagine how many years I've watched his entire career. Now, I know many people have been making these videos and I've seen many of them online, but I will be talking about something a little bit different in terms of my analysis, so stay tuned for that. Also guys, as this is an ongoing case, there's constant updates, so I probably will be making a part 2 because there's so many new things that I'm realising while I'm editing, but I'll make a part 2 about this. I'm just going to go right into it now. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Sushant Singh and who he was essentially as a person. Sushant Singh Rajput came from a non-Bollywood family background. So his father was an engineer, his mother was a homemaker, your very typical standard middle class Indian family. And in Bollywood, this is quite contrary because in Bollywood, many of the new stars, so the younger stars, come from a lineage of older directors or older film stars from the previous generations, and that's how it often happens. The new generations come in because their families have an established name. It was obviously a very different story for Sushant Singh. Now, he was an extremely kind-hearted, humble person, you can imagine, because he came from such a humble family. And he wasn't like the typical Bollywood actors and actresses. Not only this, he was a self-proclaimed nerd, an extremely bright man. He received a scholarship from Stanford University to study engineering, and in his engineering college in India, he was a class topper. He was known to win Olympiads for physics. Now you can imagine he was not only a fine actor, but he had a very bright head on his shoulders, you know. He was a very bright man. He dropped out of his engineering college with an offer from Stanford University, a scholarship offer at that. He left all of that behind to go and pursue his dreams in Bollywood because he wanted to be an actor. That was his dream. And he started from the ground up. He applied to be a backup dancer, obviously landed himself in those things, and then eventually in TV shows, and then worked his way to where he became. So on the 14th of June 2020, Sushant Singh Rajput was found hanging by a cloth to a ceiling fan in his flat. He was found by a servant, his servant who, you know, comes to do the daily chores of the house. They came in, found Sushant in that state, called the Mumbai Police. Mumbai Police deemed it as suicide, you know, not much investigation further, and that is the first mistake. Now, there are 3 potential pathways we can go down. There is, first of all, clear-cut suicide, as it says, as it looks like. Number 2, abetment to suicide. And number 3, straight up homicide, pre-planned murder. I will be delving into all 3 pathways and telling you exactly why this is definitely not a suicide. So you know how I previously mentioned that, you know, Sushant Singh was a class topper and he received a scholarship from Stanford University. Many of you will already know what Stanford University is and how prestigious it is. So to receive an offer, let alone a scholarship offer, to study engineering there, you must be an exceptionally intelligent man and somebody who is very strong-minded, strong in the head, essentially. Hold on, I know you must be thinking that intelligent people do face mental health issues, do face suicide, and I know that in Harvard, Oxbridge, many people suffer from the amount of stress and like anxiety, and I get that, and that's why there are a high amount of suicide rates in Harvard. I understand that, but you must also understand that Sushant Singh Rajput was someone with a very strong mind. You're a very strong-headed person. I understand you might still be skeptical, but wait, let me tell you more. Sushant Singh Rajput was someone who was very well known to have 50 dreams, and he was hell-bent on fulfilling all 50 of these dreams in his lifetime. He was very vocal about these dreams. He made tweets about them to his followers, and he listed all 50 of them on Twitter. And every time he achieved a dream, he would show his followers, look, I've done this dream, tick number XYZ off my list of 50. But he had many long-term ones. For example, plant 100 trees, teach many women self-defense, even raise a horse. And he was actively trying to pursue them every opportunity he got. Someone in that frame of mind who wants to commit suicide, they don't think in the long term. They think now. I don't like how I'm feeling right now. This man was someone who dreamed long term, who thought long term and planned ahead. And how can someone who dreams so big and plans for their whole entire future want to commit suicide? How does that make sense? Well, you might still be skeptical, Perry, wait, hold up. Sushant actually bought a plot on the moon. Sushant was someone who was very inquisitive about the universe, about planets, about space, about stars. You can see this in his dreams. He wanted to learn Vedic astrology and many other such things. He was very passionate about that, and hence why he actually bought a plot on the moon. Why would someone randomly just buy a plot on the moon? Now, here's what I think. I think he bought a plot on the moon because he believed technology to advance in such a way in the future years that he potentially would be able to go and visit the moon, conduct some research, which he loved space. Of course, he'd want to do that. I don't know what he might have exactly thought, but what I can think is that he potentially would have thought that he could have gone to the moon, and he would have thought humans would have been able to go to the moon, and he would have known the fact that this is not something that's possible within the next 2 years, 3 years. This is a long-term plan, and he bought the plot on the moon because he must have thought that maybe in the next 10, 15, 20 years, this is a viable dream that he can actually see himself doing.
Flaps up, body released, full throttle.
4,000 feet remaining. 3,000 feet remaining.
He was a young man. He was 34 years of age. He had plenty of time to see this dream come into fruition. Think of it this way. He was someone who was very used to the struggle. He was used to having to fight. He wasn't just born into Bollywood like other stars are. He had to fight from the ground up. He had to fight his way and make that name for himself. He is a self-made man.
I have started from nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's not even zero. It's like minus because I was doing something else. There was a momentum to become an engineer, and suddenly I discovered this thing that I really like. And I start doing it. But at the same time, as a kid, I also had many dreams, like common dreams. You know, I'll buy my own house and I'll buy this car. It's a luxury car.
He started off as a backup dancer in Bollywood, and now he was the headline for films such as Gai Che, Chichore, Dhoni. If you know anything about cricket, you know that MS Dhoni is one of the best players in the world, and he embodied that character. He played Dhoni. But not only that, but Chichore. Chichore is such an important film, and if you haven't seen it, go and see it. But this is essentially about a boy who was facing troubles in his education. He was not getting good marks in his exams and stuff, and so he wanted to commit suicide. Now, his father, who was played by Sushant, he essentially told his son, like, listen, that's not the way. That's not what you should do. Suicide is not the option. He made a film against suicide. How can someone be a hypocrite and say, I don't agree with suicide and that is not the option, and then go and do it themselves? That is not the type of person Sushant is, and I think it's a massive disrespect to say that he would do something like that. He would never make a film that he doesn't believe in, truly. He's not that type of person. He's an exceptionally kind-hearted, good, caring, humble man. He would never do such a thing. Now, looking at all of these things holistically, the fact that he is an exceptionally bright person with a strong mind, the fact that he has so many dreams and long-term dreams at that, the fact that he's used to struggle and knows what pressure is like, and he hasn't suffered from it, and he's made such inspiring films. How can an inspiring man like that commit suicide because he couldn't take it anymore? And that's why I think suicide is ruled out completely. No. While Sushant Singh was found hanging, there was no suicide note anywhere near him found whatsoever. And legally, the Mumbai Police is supposed to investigate further at least into the charges of abetting to suicide if there is no suicide note found, and initially this did not happen. Naturally, abetting to suicide will come with a hefty charge. Under section 306 of the Indian Penal Code, abetting to suicide comes with the cost of up to 10 years in prison and a fine. There was no suicide note from Sushant. There is suspicion here. Naturally, you should look into things and look at abetted suicide, but why didn't the police expand their reach? It doesn't just end there. A day before Sushant Singh's death, all CCTV cameras near and inside of his apartment were mysteriously shut off. Not only that, but his apartment keys, like his spare apartment keys, were missing. But you know what the weirdest thing in all of this is that at 8:59 AM on Wikipedia on the 14th of June 2020, it was updated and announced that Sushant Singh Rajput had committed suicide. And you might be thinking that's so normal, but it was logged that at 9:23 AM he was playing COD as per usual on his PlayStation. Not only that, at 9 AM he called his little sister to talk to her about general things, like on the phone. Whoever updated the Wikipedia and said that he committed suicide at 8:59, they knew this was going to happen. How did they know Sushant Singh was going to commit suicide? And if he was going to commit suicide, why would he do these normal things? Regularly call his sister as per usual, play Call of Duty. But not only that, the fact that this is common knowledge and available to everybody out in the open, that this Wikipedia page had been updated saying that while Sushant was still alive, and yet Mumbai Police didn't really do much about it, didn't investigate further, just passed it off as a suicide. It shows that the Mumbai Police are either being, pressured by higher people, more powerful people, for example, the Bollywood mafia, and that in itself really powerfully shows this was not a suicide. No. Now, if you've seen him before, I'll place some pictures here. You will know Sushant Singh is a well-built man, pretty muscly, strong. He was around 5'10", around 70 kg, but he was found hanging by a very flimsy cloth from his neck on the ceiling fan. How could that really small cloth have supported his whole entire weight? The general consensus is that it was too weak to hold his weight. He must have either, been forced up there or been killed in another way. But not only that, there were no chairs nearby or around him. So how could he have got up in the first place? There had to have been someone else. Also, on the cloth that he was found being hung by, there were 3 fingerprints of his own that were found, and they were all of his left hand. He is a right-handed man. He's a righty. How could he have got himself up there and tied himself like that? All of these things are pointing towards someone else being there or someone else killing him. Now, after all of this information, you let me know in the comments down below what you think has happened here. But I believe that we can, establish that he did not commit suicide. There has to be someone else involved who wanted him dead. And now we're going to talk about some potential people who would have wanted him dead. First person, Riya Chakrabarti, and she was his ex-girlfriend of roughly around 1 year. The second person I want to introduce to you is Mahesh Bhatt. He, is a big Bollywood director. He is very heavily in the Bollywood industry. You know how I told you before about people in Bollywood and their kids following along. His daughter Alia Bhatt is a huge Bollywood star now. Mahesh Bhatt sort of has this reputation for being a womanizer. If you know anything about the Jia Khan story, you might know, but he is a very, very powerful man. Riya Chakrabarti and Mahesh Bhatt were very close. A few days prior to Sushant Singh's death, Mahesh Bhatt told Riya Chakrabarti to leave him. When I talk about the Bollywood mafia, I'm essentially talking about these sorts of powerful Bollywood directors and film people in Bollywood who have a lot of power and influence to orchestrate such things. If you know about the Jia Khan case, she was very heavily involved with Mahesh Bhatt, and she was also had allegedly killed herself with suicide in 2013. Very similar to the way Sushant had passed away. Now I'm going to talk about a couple of other people as well. The next person I'm going to talk about is Sandeep Singh. Now, Sandeep and Sushant were pretty much really, really close friends. They both started out in Bollywood at the same time together. But of course, Sushant was a very charismatic person, very talented. He naturally got a lot of fame, and his poor friend Sandeep really didn't. And jealousy is a very nasty disease. Everything that Sushant told Sandeep in private, all of his private matters, Sandeep went and told Karan Johar and Salman Khan these things. And obviously, powerful people knowing your private matters, not great. Two more people I'm going to introduce you to. So first of all, Disha Salian, she was Sushant's ex-manager. The next person, Suraj Bancholi, he was, I guess, someone who was, you know, establishing a career for himself in Bollywood. He was like claimed to have been making his career big. Now Sushant and Disha were close, very, very close, because she was his ex-manager and she obviously confided in him given his charismatic nature. So much so that she actually told him about her secret relationship with Suraj Bancholi. In fact, she ended up falling pregnant with his child. He did not want to keep the child because of his career gaining popularity and he didn't need a relationship in that stage in his career. She wanted to keep the child though, bear this in mind. Essentially what was happening was Suraj was kind of forcing abortion upon Disha. He was basically saying you need to get an abortion. She was like no. She told all of this to Sushant and Sushant was very much aware that she did not want to go through with this. Naturally, if she had kept the baby, then I guess this would have become public knowledge and it would have been in the news, in the press. This fear, I guess, must have really scared Suraj. And so on the 9th of June 2020, Disha Salian had supposedly committed suicide by jumping off the 14th floor of a building. People involved claim she was battling depression and that's why she killed herself. Why would she kill herself, especially in such a brutal manner? When you're pregnant, why would you want to do that? She didn't commit suicide, she was murdered. And because Sushant knew this was injustice and this was planned and this was wrong, at a party he actually got into an altercation with Suraj Bancholi. Suraj Bancholi snitched and told Salman Khan, one of Bollywood's biggest actors, about this altercation. Salman Khan basically threatened Sushant Singh and basically said that don't talk to him, don't do anything to him or else. Now the weird thing is, in the months following up to Sushant's death, he roughly changed his SIM card on his phone around 50 times. He changed them due to him getting lots of threats. But from who? And not only that, who kept giving his number out? And this is where his girlfriend comes into play. Riya Chakrabarti. She was trying to come into Bollywood, you know, make a name for herself. Sushant Singh is known to be a very sensitive person, very emotional person. So he confided in Riya, his girlfriend, of course, of everything that was happening, which is natural in any relationship, I suppose. But like I said before, she was very, very close to Mahesh Bhatt, one of Bollywood's most powerful directors, I guess. And I believe she was telling Mahesh Bhatt all of these things and passing his number on to him, and then he would get people to coordinate threats in response. And remember what I said about Jia Khan, who also supposedly killed herself and committed suicide in 2013, who was involved with Mahesh Bhatt? Jia Khan's own mother had come out and said that the same people responsible for her daughter's death were responsible for Sushant's death and that there was more to the story. Sushant was going to speak up about Disha and what had happened to her, and he told this to not only Riya, but remember his two-faced friend Sandeep? He told this to Sandeep as well. Sandeep would have gone and told famous people in Bollywood, Karan Johar, Salman Khan. Riya would have gone and told Mahesh Bhatt. This Bollywood mafia now has all of this info on dirt on Bollywood essentially. They had to do something about it. They had to clean up the mess that they had made. And the ironic thing here is that Suraj Bancholi, in his words, I have never met Disha in my life. I only found out about her after Sushant's death. But this picture here that was taken obviously before with them together shows otherwise. Why would he lie if he has nothing to hide? Okay, so now we've established, I guess, the people involved and those who were targeting Sushant Singh Rajput. So the two groups were essentially the Bollywood mafia and then Riya Chakrabarti. They're the two branches that we're going to delve into. Now we can think about why. Firstly, the Bollywood mafia. Now the Bollywood mafia systematically tried to target Sushant's talent. They tried to suppress his talent by mentally affecting him. Why did they do this? Because they were jealous, first of all. They were jealous of this very talented young man and that he essentially came from nothing. He had no Bollywood background. He made himself from the ground upwards, like I keep saying. You often see these big actors and directors making their kids go into Bollywood and having the whole careers lined out for them on a silver platter. That was not the case for him, and he had more talent, more potential than all of these Bollywood star children. he had way more potential, and they were jealous of that. They were fearful of that. He was doing so well. His net worth was 59 crore Indian rupees, equivalent to $8 million. The second angle you can look at it is the fact that, you know, he knew this dirty secret about Suraj Pancholi, and he was going to unveil that. Now we know the reason why the Bollywood mafia wanted to get rid of Sushant. Let's have a look at how. Firstly, journalists ensured that negative articles were written about him. I guess, you know, they could have been bribed or paid off by, you know, the big Bollywood mafia and the big, you know, producers and stuff to say these false things about Sushant. I know for a fact this has happened before to Kangana Ranaut. She's talked heavily about this on her Instagram. Of course, producers know producers, so other big producers boycotted him. They didn't give him, you know, films and roles. For example, Aditya Chopra, who is a big Bollywood director, he shelved one of Sushant's films called Bani. Now, of course, when a movie gets shelved, that causes huge repercussions on the career for Sushant and anyone whose films are getting shelved. Salman Khan actually said, "Who is Sushant Singh?" in a passing comment, and Salman Khan has such a huge following, such a huge presence in Bollywood, and you know, to make a statement like that has huge repercussions on someone's career. Comments like that, who's Sushant Singh Rajput, they leave a lasting impression. However, I do think that this is a distraction from the real cause of death, which is Riya Chakravarti, and I'll get onto that in a bit. Now, the second angle I wanted to talk about was Riya Chakravarti. Like I talked about before, I think she has had a massive hand to play in the whole murder of Sushant. It frustrates me so much because she essentially was the person he confided in for a year, and he lived with her, and she took advantage of him. She manipulated him. She used him for her own selfish means. And I know I've talked about these two branches, but like I said before, she was very close with Mahesh Bhatt, the womanizer, you know. So Riya Chakravarti came into Sushant's life in 2019. Ever since then, this whole news of Sushant basically battling depression and, you know, being depressed, that has come into circulation since 2019, since Riya has been in his life. Second of all, he used to live in his own nice little house. He has done his own, you know, debuts and, you know, like adverts and stuff in his old house.
So I define my living room as a time traveling room because there are different stories here. My time machine. You can see Saturn rings, Jupiter moons, and actually different galaxies, Andromeda also.
But Riya had actually told him she felt that the house was haunted and it was making him go crazy, and she essentially forced him to move house, and she forced him to move in a rental flat, and this is the flat that he was found dead in. She basically confined him to this apartment. It said that she was giving him medicine, basically telling him that he was crazy, convincing him that he was, you know, crazy. And in India, there's a huge stigma around any sort of mental illness. They don't really have this concept of GPs as though we have here. You know, if you go to a doctor about something like this, I guess they'll just class you as crazy. I guess she was basically trying to do that to him, convince him that he was crazy. And she was actually giving him antidepressant tablets that he was not prescribed at all. Now, if you're from here, you will know that before you are prescribed you know, antidepressants of any sort, you have to go through rigorous, you know, mental health checks and tests and talks with your doctors and consultations. You have talk therapy, loads of different things you have to do before you are prescribed these tablets. And this is because antidepressant tablets are very dangerous. They're not like your average paracetamol. You can pop a pill, whatever, call it a day. Once you get on them, it's very hard to get off them, and you cannot just get off them abruptly. There's a process that you have to do when you are getting yourself off antidepressants, and while you do that, you have to consult your doctor. Whatever side effects that you have, you consult your doctor through every step, because antidepressant tablets are very dangerous. There are so many side effects. For example, hallucinations. You know, you might often see things, hear things. Another thing is, when you're trying to withdraw from them, you get symptoms such as self-harm thoughts, suicidal thoughts, especially if you are young, so like around under the age of 25. Sushant was, I guess, in his early 30s, but you know, Sushant's father, actually KK Singh, he has actually made a statement saying that Riya was stopping him from talking to his family. She was controlling his bank statements. She was controlling his whole entire life, to the extent that she even threatened to release his medical records. How low do you have to stoop to want to expose somebody's personal health records. I believe that she tried to turn him crazy, tried to kill him because she wanted to have publicity, she wanted to have her own fame. She wanted to use Sushant, saying he was worth 59 crore rupees. So much so to the point that she actually transferred 15 crore rupees from Sushant's account to God knows what account. No one knows where that money is. That wasn't even her money. That was Sushant's money. Sushant, and she took it. And the likelihood is she probably gave it to Mahesh Bhatt because, you know, I guess he essentially must have orchestrated the whole killing for him. That is a potential theory. To further paint out to you what type of person she was, she stole his credit cards, she stole jewelry, she stole money, she stole wallets, all of that from Sushant before she left. Genuinely think that the sole reason she came into his life was to use him and leech off him. So she did leave Sushant before his death, I believe roughly a week and a half, I think, before he was found dead, and she left with all of these things. Hey guys, sorry this is all over the place, but I forgot to mention, look at the handkerchief on her waist in her Instagram picture. I'm pretty sure it's the same one that Sushant supposedly hung himself with. She deleted all her posts on Instagram with him, she blocked him. To further show you what type of a person she was, when she went to visit her dead boyfriend in the hospital, she wore a white salwar kameez and she wore a nice lace face mask as though she was having a public appearance. When your boyfriend of 1 year has died, and that too in such a tragic way, and you attend his, you know, you visit him at the hospital dressed like that as though you're going to some party, that actually is so disgusting. So the angle I haven't heard be explored in other people's videos is this mental health angle, and you know, I don't think there's much analysis done about it because in India they don't really know much about it because of the stigma. Now living here, I think I understand a lot more about mental health, about the process of being on antidepressants and stuff. And so I think what happened was she was feeding him, whether subconsciously or consciously, we don't know. She was feeding him these pills, antidepressant pills, I guess. And the thing is, once he was found dead, his toxicology report actually said there were no trace of any sort of medicine in his body, which means he was no longer on that medication. Now, from what I'm thinking has happened, from when she was still there roughly a week and a half before that, she was still giving him all the regular doses, and as soon as she left, she abruptly stopped giving him his tablets. And like I told you before, the side effects of withdrawal symptoms from, you know, not taking your antidepressants anymore are devastating. You can get hallucinations, you can get panic attacks, you can get self-harm thoughts, suicidal thoughts, and no doubt I believe he would have had them too, and he would have thought, I am actually going crazy, but he was not the one that was going crazy, she was the one that was physically turning him crazy. And this is why I definitely think this was pre-planned. Now, moving on to the current day, just yesterday, so I'm filming this on the 29th of July, so just yesterday, KK Singh, so Sushant's father, has filed an FIR against Riya Chakravarti. An FIR is essentially a first information report. This is a document prepared by the police in many South Asian countries. Basically, when the police receive new information about the commission of a pretty, I guess, sizable offence. The reason why he has filed this, and I guess escalated this to the CBI, which is the equivalent of Indian FBI type of thing, is because he felt that the Mumbai Police was not giving him any updates on this investigation about his son, about the death of his son, because according to the family of Sushant, he was perfectly fine when they would speak to him. He was fine before Riya came into his life. He was not crazy, he was not mentally unstable. Sushant's dad naturally felt helpless, felt frustrated. Like, another update to the story, guys, I'm editing on the 31st of July. An hour ago, Ankita Lokhande, Sushant's former ex-girlfriend of 6 years, even she said that he hasn't got the suicidal personality, so it just reinforces that this really was not a suicide. His son's case wasn't being investigated, so that's why he filed an FIR against Riya Chakravarti, because he knew that she was stopping him from talking to them. He knew she was controlling everything about his life. She made him move houses in 1 year being with him. She's done all of these things, manipulated him so heavily, even to the point where she gave him psychotropic medicines on the sly without him knowing, turning him crazy. And I believe that the Mumbai Police have done this because of the power of the Bollywood Mafia. The Bollywood Mafia have immense power, like I've said, so of course they were corrupted into, I guess, covering this case, covering the tracks, and it's all looking way too dodgy, way too dodgy. There's too many things not adding up. I'll leave you guys to sort of make your own conclusions, but let me know what you think in the comments below happened to Sushant. But what I think is that this death was not a suicide, and I'm completely sure. And what I believe is that his ex-girlfriend Riya Chakravarti, she worked with Mahesh Bhatt and the Bollywood mafia to sort of orchestrate his death. They killed two birds with one stone essentially. So sorry I keep coming in with these voiceovers, guys, but the case is so fast paced and there's new updates literally every day. So I think I want to have more focus on the fact that it was Riya as opposed to the Bollywood like mafia, because I think that is low-key a distraction. But I do think it was still killing two birds with one stone, but mainly Riya Chakravarti. What Riya wanted and what the Bollywood mafia wanted was the same end goal for different reasons. The Bollywood mafia wanted to get rid of a beautiful, talented, bright boy because of jealousy, and of course the whole Disha and Suraj Bancholi, you know, scandal. That aspect. Riya wanted to leech off his wealth, leech off his what he had, I guess build her career based on his foundations that he had made, and then dip, basically leave, peace out. We are here for justice and we're here for Sushant, so please guys, you know, do what you can to help Sushant reach justice. This is my sort of way of getting justice out there, speaking his truth, I guess you could sort of say. I want his Atma, his soul, to get peace, to get Shanti. He would not have wanted this, and I want him to have justice. That is really it for today, guys. I know this was a very heavy video, but please do comment down below all of your thoughts and let me know what you think, really. And if you'd like to hear more sort of stories of this wavelength, let me know in the comments below. But as for now, I will have to leave it here and see you next time. Bye.